A university is banning the sale of beef burgers to try to fight global warming. Goldsmith University of London is removing all beef products from sale and charging a 10p levy on bottled water and single-use plastic cups. It plans to install more solar panels across its campus in south-east London and to switch to a 100% clean energy supplier as soon as possible. Emma Revel is Communications Manager at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Dr Maria Carvalho is from South Pole, a carbon solutions company. Welcome to you both. Of course, it's the beef product ban which has caught most attention in this story, isn't it? What are the merits of it, do you think, Emma, of them doing this at Goldsmiths?
I think if students want to take the decision for themselves, they're absolutely entitled to do that. What I think is objectionable is that the university has taken this decision across the whole campus. I think university is the first time for many of these students that they will be in charge of their own lifestyles. You know, it's the first time that they become truly adults, and they should be allowed to make these decisions for themselves rather than the university taking, you know, a blanket ban.
There's a lot in that, isn't there? It's about freedom of choice, it's about not being told what to do. Why should the university take this step on that scale rather than leaving it to individuals?
Well, first of all, I don't think the university did it unilaterally, that there was actually a student engagement with a petition to actually ask for the ban of beef and use on campus. And so that's an important thing of actually enabling. Universities are a great place for both education, enabling a leadership, but also student democrats and democracy in action, and therefore students actually do have to play a part in this process. So it doesn't necessarily have to be unilateral, nor do I think going forward the university has said it'll do unilateral actions. It will work with the student union in determining what are future strategies. But one of the important things about freedom of choice is that it's not hard for a student to go off campus to get their burger if they really need it.
But the scale of it happening at university level, how much more meaningful is it than an individual trying to do it?
It's incredibly meaningful because at a university level, there's a single large decision maker, but within that, they actually go through many boards. I've worked at London School of Economics Student Union and also worked in a lot of these kinds of campaigns to get the university to take these actions. So it's gone through a lot, but it's actually exceptionally important, not just for that university, but as giving a signal to other universities. So it can create massive action going forward.
Isn't that the point, Emma, that other universities might think, actually, this is quite a good idea, or it might even nudge a few other people to think about the choices that they're making? If not about beef products, about other things too.
I think that's important. It's about looking at the whole wide range of choices that an individual can make to improve their lifestyle if they are particularly worried about the climate. But studies have shown that actually if someone cut out meat entirely, they're only going to reduce their carbon footprint by about 4%, and that's all meat, that's not just beef. So we need to look at the wider range of issues that impact on climate change, not just, you know, get tied into the food footprint.
If you were in charge of it then, of this policy, what would you be suggesting that a university looked at if it's not banning beef products from the campus?
I mean, as you say, beef is what has attracted the attention. Quite a lot of the other recommendations I think are quite sensible. You know, if the university wants to make a switch to renewable energy, I think they've talked about solar panels, for example, on their buildings. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing for the university to do. What I'm concerned about with the beef is the infringement on individual liberty of students to make their own choices.
But students, since time began, have embarked in activism of this kind, haven't they?
They have, but I think it's being ramped up, and I think the climate narrative of the minute is tending towards alarmism. I think we need to inject a little bit of reality into this and say that obviously climate change is very important, but I think there is a tendency towards overreacting in the last few months and maybe year. Isn't
that the danger, though, Maria, that you make this small change and you think that you've done enough, when in actual fact it might be things like replacing energy-hungry technology that, yes, it's more expensive to do, but you would have a much greater impact?
Well, actually, last week, the IPCC, which is the International Panel on Climate Change, has shown that your food choice does matter. In fact, in the way agriculture affects land use in and of itself accounts for 33% of emissions in the past 10 years. To put that in perspective, transport only took 15 when you look at this report. So to say that food and food choices don't matter is actually misrepresentative of the actual climate agenda and the actual climate problem. So how you eat food does matter, how the food choices you make for agriculture, and particularly beef is a massive, the cattle industry is actually a big deforester. So it's one of the big drivers of deforestation deforestation rates in many parts of, very critical parts of the world. And also the cattle feed used, which is soy, is also another big deforestation. So when you're thinking about it, the food choices that you do make matter. So I wouldn't discount it as something that we don't think about.
How do you argue with that science, that evidence?
I mean, that is great evidence, but the deforestation issue is something that isn't particularly relevant to British beef. And actually what the National Farmers Union have said is that if Goldsmiths had switched to British beef, then British beef is actually has 2.5 times lower carbon footprint than the global average, which, as you've said, is driven by deforestation. Switching to British beef would have been a choice that Goldsmiths could have made that prompted students to think about climate change, but also allowed them to make their own individual decisions rather than just scrapping beef from the menu entirely.
It's certainly got us talking, hasn't it? And we're very grateful to you both for joining us. Emma Revel from the Institute of Economic Affairs and Dr Maria Carvalho from South Pole Carbon Solutions Company. Thank you both.